Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Joshua, and right now, Bitcoin is continuing to bounce from my exact area of support as the price is still repeating history in the short term, playing out this short-term bullish divergence, while the price of Solana is continuing to bounce from this exact area on the price chart, while the price of XRP is also now bouncing from this very crucial area that we need to pay attention to. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, and the super trend indicator is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bull market. But on this weekly Bitcoin price chart, we still have that major bearish divergence, technically still confirmed, still playing out on the weekly time frame with higher highs in the price and lower highs in the weekly Bitcoin RSI. And obviously, I warned about this over a month ago, almost 2 months ago now on the channel. And since then, since around all-time highs right here, obviously we have seen a larger slowdown, a bit of a pullback and lacking bullish momentum over the last few weeks, if not months, which is what I've been warning about since over a month ago. And if we're taking a look at this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, we're starting to basically slow the bearish momentum, which is some good news in the shorter term. But with that being said, we're not really seeing a significant amount of bullish momentum, at least so far in the 3-day Bitcoin MACD. And so remember, as I always say, during all of this move right here, lacking bullish momentum, yes, we can see short-term bullish moves on smaller time frames, but in terms of the larger momentum in the market right now, we can clearly see it's not extremely bullish right now. We're still looking kind of weak in the price of Bitcoin, lacking bullish momentum in terms of the larger time frames here, obviously. But at least for now, once again, due to the fact that the histogram within the MACD indicator is turning back towards the upside, it means we're not necessarily increasing any bearish momentum anymore. We're just starting to look relatively neutral, potentially developing a bit of a sideways price range. So not a lot of bullish momentum, but not really a lot of bearish momentum. Overall, still looking quite weak though on the larger timeframes. But if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin price chart, we can see in the somewhat shorter term, obviously over the last few days, we've continued a perfect bounce from this exact area of support that I've been talking about, sitting in between around 106.7k to 107.6k. So right in that range right there, we actually saw a couple of perfect bounces from within that price range. And so obviously, if for example, you were to, let's just say, either take profits from a short position or buy Bitcoin or open a long position, any of those right there, if you were to do that in this area of support, obviously if you longed from this area, you would have done very well with this latest bounce here. But it is worth pointing out we're potentially getting close towards a bit of resistance based on this high right here in the daily candle closes, also based on this low and this low, all sitting at around the same level on the price chart, which is sitting at around 112.6k approximately. So basically roughly 112,500 as we approach 113,000. It's likely we could find some short-term resistance around there. And we also have this previous Fibonacci level here sitting at around 113.7k, which could also act as a bit of short-term resistance. And technically speaking, this bearish divergence on the daily time frame, as well as the bearish divergence on the weekly time frame, is technically still active. We've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to properly invalidate these larger bearish divergences. But zooming further into the shorter term, obviously in the immediate short term, just on the 4-hour time frame, the small time frames, we do have an active bullish divergence playing out, which has already played out very nicely over the last few days as predicted. And so now, if you're new to all of this, you might be wondering, how do we have a bullish divergence playing out at the same time as a bearish divergence playing out? Wouldn't they just contradict each other? But as always, understand the difference between the different time frames. For example, the bearish divergence on the weekly time frame is a larger bearish divergence. In other words, a longer term price movement, or a movement that will likely play out over weeks, if not months, is a likely result of this larger bearish divergence on the larger time frames, which has already played out very nicely over the last few weeks, over the last 1 month, give or take. But on the smaller time frames, like for example, the 4-hour time frame, these much shorter term moves obviously only last for maybe a few days or so before possibly reversing. So keep that in mind. The small time frames are small moves in the price that are short lasted. And so for now, technically speaking, we've not yet confirmed a reversal out of this bearish trend on the 4-hour time frame, because technically speaking, we're still forming lower highs and lower lows, which by definition is a bearish trend. But we are getting closer towards possibly breaking out above this high right here, which if we start to do that now in the price of Bitcoin above this previous high, sitting at around 113.5k, give or take. If we get back above that level, obviously that'll be the first higher high that we've seen in multiple weeks here for the price of Bitcoin on the 4-hour time frame, and the first change in price structure to actually possibly reverse the trend, not just the short-term moves here, but the trend back into the bullish direction. If we start to see a breakout, ideally above this high and hold above that level or form some sort of higher low as well. But so far, technically, this bullish divergence on the 4-hour time frame is still active, which means it is possible we could continue up towards that high right there. So keep that in mind. We'll likely test these levels coming soon, and obviously expect some resistance around these previous highs. And if we break out above these levels that I just mentioned earlier, in that situation, we could find some more resistance at around 114,500, and we have a significant level of resistance at around 117,000. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can still see that we have some areas of liquidity above the price that are worth paying attention to, sitting at around 114,000 and around 116,000. But keep in mind, we still have a lot of liquidity building below the price of Bitcoin, sitting at around 106.8k to 107.1k, so roughly 107,000. We still have a lot of liquidity right there. And so as I mentioned in my last video here on the channel just yesterday, I said it's likely we'll continue a little bit higher with a continued short-term bullish relief due to this bullish divergence right here, technically still active. But as we start to get towards these upside areas of liquidity, and especially if we take out those areas of liquidity to the upside and perhaps start to run into some points of resistance, possibly reject from these points of resistance, in that situation, it is also possible we remain in the bearish trend. So we could continue to see a little bit more of a short-term bullish relief over a period of days, but then maybe in a week from now, for example, it's possible we start to make our way towards this downside liquidity. That is still a risk that we need to be aware of, because like I've been saying this entire time, even though I do expect a bit more of a short-term bullish relief, if we're looking at the larger momentum in the market, we're still not currently seeing significant bullish momentum on the larger timeframes, which is why all of the bullish moves that we've seen over the last couple of weeks are obviously short-lived. They're just very short-term bullish moves and not large sustained bullish momentum towards the upside, because we're lacking the bullish momentum, at least for now. That is the current situation. And so all of this is still playing out as predicted here on this channel. And of course, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, you have to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And personally, I'm taking a lot of my crypto trades over on Bitfinex, and I'll make sure to leave a link to Bitfinex below this video. And if you use that link, you can claim some massive bonuses that are only available using that link. For example, you can claim up to 25,000 USD in prize pool bonuses here, simply just by trading crypto using that link. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out in order to potentially claim some major free money from the exchange just by trading crypto. So once again, if you're going to be doing it anyway, check it out. First link below this video. And in case you're wondering, Bitfinex is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want Bitfinex as an exchange, there's also Pinex as another exchange out there that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to Pinex below this video. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can also claim some massive bonuses. For example, if you simply just make an account using the link below this video and complete KYC, it takes about 60 seconds to do this without making any deposits at all. You get a free $50 bonus onto your Pinex account, free money from the exchange, which you can use to trade over on Pinex, but only if you use that link. If you don't use that link below this video, you cannot claim any of these bonuses here. There's also deposit bonuses. So for example, if you deposit just $100, you get a $100 bonus, or if you deposit $10,000, you get a $1,000 bonus onto your Pinex account. But remember, all of this is only available if you actually use the link below this video to make your Pinex account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, definitely check out the exchange's links below this video to take advantage of these major bonuses here. And in case you're wondering, yes, you can access Pinex without KYC. But with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance on the 3-day time frame, and right now in the immediate short term, the Bitcoin dominance is looking relatively neutral, but we're still within the larger pullback. The larger price structure is technically still bearish, and obviously over the last couple of days, we've seen just a slight little short-term bounce in the Bitcoin dominance, which over the last 1 to 2 days caused just a slight little drop in some of the altcoin market. But just over the last 1 day, over the last 24 hours, we have seen once again just a slight little drop again in the Bitcoin dominance, causing a little bit of a bounce just over the last 1 day in the altcoin market. But overall, we're not really seeing any substantial movement in the Bitcoin dominance, at least for now. So of course, if anything changes, I will let you know about it here on the channel as soon as it happens. Make sure you subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, right now Ethereum is still bouncing around in this sideways price range, exactly as I've been predicting for over a week now on the channel, and I continue to predict this moving forward at least over the coming days. I expect the price to remain range bound in this sideways price range, just bouncing around sideways in a sideways price range. And in case you're new to the channel, this area of support for the sideways price range is sitting in between around 3.9k to 4.1k, and this area of resistance is sitting in between around 4.8k to 4.9k. So basically, I expect the price to remain in that area, bouncing from this support or just above this support and rejecting from this resistance or just below the resistance, ultimately staying in the range. And if we're taking a look at this daily Ethereum price chart, technically speaking, this bearish divergence is still currently active. But with that being said, it's not like we're seeing significant bearish momentum, seeing a significant crash or anything like that from this bearish divergence. And so overall, honestly, we're looking very neutral in the shorter term. Like I've been saying for over a week, expect the price to bounce around relatively sideways in this sideways price range. And due to this bearish divergence, this is telling us that we're still looking somewhat weak in the short term, lacking bullish momentum, but also due to the fact that, for example, Bitcoin is playing out a short-term bullish relief that's helping Ethereum essentially avoid a lot of bearish price action, which is ultimately giving us very neutral price action in the short term. And this will likely continue, at least in the shorter term, as in over the next few days. And if we're taking a look at the Solana price chart on the 2-day time frame, we can see that right now the price of Solana is perfectly bouncing from this very important area on the price chart, sitting in between around 190 to 200. And previously, that area has acted as strong resistance for the price, but more recently, over the last 1 week, give or take, has been acting as very strong support. And so now that the price is continuing to hold above this area and bounce from this area, obviously, this is a good sign to see in terms of the larger trend here, because we're obviously maintaining bullish price structure, maintaining this as support and not breaking back below this area, still forming higher lows and higher highs. So ultimately, the larger trend still technically bullish on the 2-day Solana price chart. And obviously, during the larger bullish trend, we can see the occasional shorter term pullback along the way towards the upside. And obviously, just a few days ago, we did see another one of those short-term pullbacks, but for now, we are getting supported in this area, once again, in between 190 to 200. And as for resistance on this chart right here, expect some resistance at around 215 and also at around 230. And if we're taking a look at the shorter term on the 6-hour time frame, honestly, I'd no longer really rely on this bearish divergence any longer. It's already perfectly played out over the last half a week, give or take. But we're now clearly starting to see a bit more of a reversal in both the RSI and the price action, breaking out above these previous highs in the RSI and the price on the 6-hour Solana price chart. And also, if we're looking at this descending line of resistance in the 6-hour Solana RSI, we can see that right now we're pretty much testing the level and just about to break out potentially above that level, which will be another invalidation signal if we see that to invalidate the bearish divergence. And so overall, I expect a little bit more of a short-term bullish relief for the price of Solana, especially if Bitcoin plays out something similar. Obviously, if Bitcoin continues a slight little relief in the shorter term, it's likely this can help a lot of the altcoin market, especially if the Bitcoin dominance remains kind of neutral, or especially if it dumps. Once again, that's good news for altcoins. If it bounces, then that would be bad news for altcoins. But overall, Solana still looking more bullish than bearish in terms of the larger trend here. And if we're taking a look at this weekly XRP price chart, we can see that right now, technically, despite what happens in the shorter term on the slightly smaller timeframes, we can see on the weekly time frame, we still have a massive bearish divergence, still confirmed, still actively playing out, which, like I've been warning about for over a month now on the channel, since almost all-time highs, I've been saying since around $3.40, expect a larger pullback over a period of weeks, if not months. And obviously, since $3.40, that's been perfectly playing out, as I've been warning about every day for over a month now on the channel. And if we're taking a look at this daily XRP price chart, we can see that right now the price is perfectly bouncing from around this previous low at roughly 275. Based on the candle closes here, we pretty much perfectly bounced from around 275, and we're currently retesting this previous area of support, potentially now acting as new resistance in between around 285 to 290. And if we get back above $2.90, ideally with candle closes above that level and holding above that area, in that situation, the next major point of resistance resistance based on this daily XRP price chart would be this level right here at close to $3.10, around $3.08 to $3.10. And if we actually break below around 275 with candle closes below that level, in that situation, the next major target would be this area in between around 255 to 262. And if we're taking a look at this daily XRP price chart, we can see that just in the shorter term, obviously we're continuing a little bit more of a short-term bounce from this very important level of support on the daily XRP price chart, sitting at, once again, roughly $2.75 based on this previous low right here. And of course, so far, we're still bouncing at 275. We've not yet confirmed daily candle closes below that level, but if we confirm daily candle closes below that level, and especially if we fail to get back above 275 in that situation, then we'll likely see a larger move towards the downside, at least towards this area that I mentioned earlier, in between 255 to 262, but quite possibly to much lower price targets based on this bearish descending triangle pattern. But remember, I want to make this clear, this possible price target for this possible pattern, not currently confirmed at all, because we've not yet confirmed a break below 275 with candle closes below that level. So for now, this is still acting as support, still obviously support to pay attention to if we see another little pullback here. And as for resistance based on this line right here, it's still sitting at roughly $3. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, right now Chainlink is following a lot of the other crypto market, a lot of other altcoins here with this short-term bounce, and we're potentially about to retest this area of resistance in between roughly $24 to $25. Obviously, we're now starting to break out back above $23, which is a good sign to see, but we still have resistance once again as we approach roughly $25. Expect resistance closer towards that level, and still significant resistance at just underneath $27, around $26.70 to $27, acting as strong resistance, as I've warned about here on the channel since before we perfectly rejected from that area. And as for support, if we see another rejection or pullback in the short term, expect major support as we start to approach $21, and especially in between around $20 to $21. That's a very crucial area on the price chart. And technically speaking, the much larger trend, the longer term trend, larger price structure on this daily Chainlink price chart is still currently bullish, considering at least for now we're still forming higher lows and higher highs, which is obviously a bullish trend. But obviously during the larger bullish trend, we can see short-term pullbacks or short-term bearish trends on smaller time frames during the bigger picture, the larger bullish trend. And obviously one of the major causes to this shorter term pullback and weakness and lacking bullish momentum over the last 1 to 2 weeks in the price of Chainlink is due to the fact that we've been actively playing out this bearish divergence on the daily Chainlink price chart, with higher highs in the price and lower highs confirmed in the daily Chainlink RSI. And technically speaking, as of recording this video, despite the current short-term bounce, this is still currently active because we've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to actually invalidate this bearish divergence. And so overall, this means that we could continue to see a lack in bullish momentum, showing some weakness in the shorter term. Now, obviously, that does not necessarily mean a major crash in the price. It's entirely possible we just chop around sideways a little bit, maybe even see some slight little bullish reliefs here and there, but overall lacking bullish momentum, not really seeing, for example, massive moves like what we saw back here or back here, for example. But overall, honestly, if you don't even hold Bitcoin and if you're just trading altcoins, still pay attention to what Bitcoin is doing, because obviously over the last couple of days here, as Bitcoin plays out a short-term bullish relief, and especially if the Bitcoin dominance kind of remains bearish here while Bitcoin is playing out a bullish relief, that's really going to help a lot of the altcoin market, at least in the shorter term, playing out these short-term bullish reliefs. And remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto no matter what the price is doing, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.